as I was like, let me try this crowdfunding thing. And literally with a spreadsheet and emails, I emailed everybody I knew. And I was like, I want to buy into this little deli. I was incredibly fortunate with that crowdfunding. And I did raise, at the time, it felt like a large amount of money. It sadly didn't work out. The cafe didn't work out at all. But I was really, really proud of that time. Well, you need to give yourself permission to succeed. You need to believe in yourself and go, oh, I can do that. Try it, because your inner voice is not going to let you go until you do. And yes, actually, you will fail. Amazing. You don't know where that's going to lead. So just listen to your inner voice and go for it.
Welcome to Risk and Rise, the podcast where we explore the journey of overcoming the fear of failure, embracing risk, and achieving success in entrepreneurship, creativity, and personal growth. I'm your host, Talana Simpson, and I'm thrilled to embark on this journey with you. Together we'll discover the strategies, insights, and shifts in our thinking and attitudes that are needed to turn setbacks into stepping stones and transform fear into fuel for success. So grab your coffee, get comfortable, and let's dive into today's episode of Risk and Rise. Today we are going to be risking and rising with Erica Schofield. She comes from a background in theatre and in crowdfunding and has run her own businesses and worked with teams and corporates. So we are sure to learn a lot, not only just about the world of crowdfunding, but also how to turn our failures into gifts. Welcome, Erica. To get us going, what comes to mind when you hear the term risk and rise?
What immediately comes to head actually is, I think it was Brene Brown has a section in her books where she's like, if you change fear, like clenches you up, and if you can change your mentality, it's the same symptoms, if you like, for excitement. So instead of being afraid, you're excited. And that's literally when you go risk and rise. I think back, that's what I do all the time, is as soon as I start feeling like that, I'm like, this is like parachute jump, and you're going to feel amazing afterwards. And so the first time you mentioned the name of the podcast, that's where my head went. It was like, oh yeah, make it exciting. And off you go. So
tell us a bit about your story, your entrepreneurial journey, how you got to where you are today, just a brief background. And then we want to just highlight one or two points where failure was around, happened or on the horizon.
I was thinking about it, it's a while ago now, but actually where I think everything started for me was when I was about 13, and it became so pivotal, is that there was at a local theatre, there was a weekly drama class, and at the time my two friends said, let's go, because we've heard that there are all these cute boys there. So we did go that night, and there were some very cute boys there. But at the end of that night, they were like, okay, not doing that again. Too scary. And there was something in me that clicked. And I was like, I have to go back. And I remember now, because I was quite a very quiet, very reserved kind of child. And I remember somewhere around Wednesday, Thursday, every week, my gut would start clenching up and I'd be tense, but something in me was like, you're going back. And every Friday it'd be that and that wonderful high afterwards. And what's for me there, that those people became the most incredible group of friends. We're still friends now. And who they became and what we achieved, through creating theatre performances, I think totally influenced the rest of my life. And it's that little voice has always been there. And sometimes it goes away for a good 7-8 years and then comes back. But that you have to do this, and who cares if it's feeling horrible? You've got to go do it, and it's always paid off. So that's where it all started for me, and that why that even became important was I've always been really curious about everything. I don't know if you've ever heard of David Epstein's range. He wrote this book about generalists, and I read it and I was delighted because I was like, that's me. I get so curious and so fascinated about many, many things. So like theatre was big in my life, but should I study medicine or drama? And I actually ended up doing microbiology and biochemistry, but wanting to be an actress because I was so fascinated. And where that kind of led me, I think the strangest route pathways lead you somewhere. So where that led me was I was reading a brother's proposal. They were putting in a funding application for their startup IT business. And I got so curious and so fascinated. And they asked me to proofread it because I was doing theatre writing. And I ended up helping them out. And we started this tech company right in the beginning where online businesses were something you tried to persuade people that internet was a good thing and it was safe. And I think I might be the only person in the world who said their acting paid for their day job, because I used to literally act at night and then just go do cold calling in the day for this company. And it's grown and it's still in business, and it's done that whole beautiful journey of 4 or 5 people and late nights and coffee through to now. I'm not actually involved anymore at all, but now it's like a solid kind of IT services with an established brand. So I was very fortunate to see that journey. And through it, I think it led me to so many adventures like on there. And I'm like, where do I go next? What do I say? Where I think with that company, where I was really lucky is that basically I was based in Cape Town, had no office, and I was helping out, and I ended up establishing that Cape Town office, and it became a really important wing for the company. And I was given a really lovely opportunity as a lot of freedom, but also the support of being with the company. But it did get to that point, and also time off to do theatre, which is, I think, where I really, really did learn entrepreneurship. Because, with you, firstly, as any sort of actor will know, there are very seldom parts that suit you. So I began writing my own parts and writing for my friends, and we'd create these shows, and then raising the funds to create a show, and then persuading people to come see your shows. And then the real reward, because we managed to travel all over the world. So I've been to Indonesia, to Scotland, through theatre and performance. And that kind of, it gives you, in a very short period, a really nice overview of a product, if you like. So I always had that working in IT, and it was all very exciting. It was so exciting because everything was changing so fast. And theatre had this beautiful balance in life. I was very, very fortunate, I think. And then along came the way of, I just started niggling and needing almost to make my own decisions around business. And so left to open a little organic deli, or buy into an organic deli, because I almost, and I don't know if it is an entrepreneurial thing or just something that happens when you reach a certain age, but I just wanted to make my own decisions and fail, actually, make my own mistakes. And I mean, we spoke about it, that daily didn't work out, but the gifts it gave me going forward were amazing. So there, where that's the funniest gifts of that little daily was I crowdfunded for it. Back before there was a crowdfunding kind of platform, or that before it was even a thing. And I sat with, my husband and I had attended this talk about it by a gentleman from England called Michael Norton, who he'd raised, I think, £100 million for the Millennium Fund. He was a very well-known fundraiser. And he was basically talking about the power of the crowd and the power of the only kind of way forward he could see in this craziness that the economy was becoming. It was by helping each other and supporting each other and communities, helping grow what they wanted to grow. And his talk was very inspiring. My husband, Patrick Schofield, is a serial social entrepreneur. So the theory is businesses that do good, but also make a profit. And I think many businesses are social enterprises. They haven't just labeled themselves that, but it was very much like business for purpose greater than just profit. And he was, after that talk, he was like, start a platform, go do a crowdfunding platform. And for me, the talk was like, no, like I want to help people. I want to help people do this. So like it was sort of as I was like, let me try this crowdfunding thing. And literally with a spreadsheet and emails, I emailed everybody I knew. And I was like, I want to buy into this little deli. It was very important to me because it was about slow food and organics and whole living. And again, with that curiosity, didn't actually know that much about it, but I was like, that sounds amazing. And I need to know. And when you work with something, you get to know it very, very well. So I was incredibly fortunate with that crowdfunding. I did raise, at the time, it felt like a large amount of money, 80,000 Rand to put into stock with the cafe and start working. And the cafe was like, it was a wonderful experience, but it was very, very hard. It asked a lot. Anyone who works in the hospitality industry knows it's the same thing every day at high intensity, and you're never free. Like there's always something you can do better. And I was running 10 staff and stock, and a little bit hilarious because I'm not a cook. I love to eat food. I don't necessarily know much about making it. So it was also a strange environment for me to be in. I had to really trust who I was working with. And it sadly didn't work out. The cafe didn't work out at all. But I was really, really proud of that time. Because like all our staff went on to new opportunities and we left no one with debt. And we'd had a lot of these small suppliers, local vegetable suppliers who'd really trusted us and worked with us. We managed to leave everything on a really good level. And it took me a while to do that. But the strange thing is that what came away from that time when the crowdfunding was then I kept kind of being asked to help out with other crowdfunding campaigns. And in the meantime, my husband did go and establish Thunder Fund. And then later, BackerBuddy, he took over. So he's become like Mr. Crowdfunding of South Africa, though there's many, many people involved. But always on my journey out of it was the people who crowdfund and helping. So the one that sticks out was Labia Theatre. So if you live in Cape Town,
Yes,
you'll know the Labia Theatre. And they hit this incredible, all independent cinemas across the globe hit the same thing. About 2014, 2015, cinema went from those celluloid and those beautiful reels and those projectors to digital. And those digital cameras were amazing, like what you could do with them, but they were very, very expensive. So we managed to crowdfund and help the Labia Theatre do that switch to digital. And through that campaign, I really saw the power of crowdfunding, and it's far beyond the funds that you raise at the end. It's bringing a community together. So that's, I think, where I got the little bug. So kind of, and I've been helping people crowdfunding and crowdfund. One of the main reasons I entered the cafe was actually I really wanted a family. So we closed it and had our beautiful son. And again, just like I'm probably the only person who's acting paid for the day job, I think I'm the only person who got pregnant and went and looked for full-time employment. After running my own business, it just felt almost like a holiday. I was like, really, you just have to do 8 to 5 and that's it. This is amazing. But yeah, for that time, I just wanted to build security and kind of predictability. So I went back into IT in a kind of a corporate environment. And then funny enough, just before COVID, completely coincidentally, I was like, again, I needed to step out, make my own decisions again, and also find business with a purpose. And with crowdfunding, people just kind of kept asking me for advice, and suddenly I realized I had clients. And so I started a consultancy called Circulist, specifically around helping circular economy, environmental, social impact kind of businesses crowdfund, because I think there are amazing ideas, and often it's just that initial kind of kickoff that's very hard for businesses to do. And then one of my clients became Thunder Fund. So it's so fun. You talk about sort of failure or how things feel. One of my big, when I speak about it right up front, is I worked for my brother's company and I worked for my husband's company. He grabs opportunities, and sometimes I'm like, but it's because I'm really good at what I do, I promise. It's like as you do. But during that time, I did quite a fair amount of consulting for the Underfund, and then recently was asked if I'd step in as CEO. So it has been it's been an amazing journey with crowdfunding, and that's a very long story of my kind of entrepreneurial journey, because it does kind of many twists and turns.
But what's fascinating is when I ask people to tell me their story, is there's always a thread. It's so interesting. Even if I look at my history, and like there's something that you go from one thing to another, and you pick up something and maybe totally different to your previous job, but you pick up something that leads you to your next thing, and then when you look back, somehow there's a thread that connects everything.
Yeah.
And there's a lot there around. Yes.
I do. I have to admit, sometimes in the last little while, I've been going that, like, I know there's a thread, but where is this going? It's so easy when you look back, you're like, oh yeah, that was great.
Yeah, it's a hindsight thread. It's like, it's very difficult going forward. So let's go back then to, you spoke about how that little organic deli gave you some of the most amazing gifts. Yeah. And I think that's your reframe of what other people who don't seem to have the mindset of engaging and embracing failure, but they might have seen what you call gifts now as huge failures, huge mistakes, huge things that didn't work. Mm-hmm. So maybe you can highlight one or two of them, and just how do you, what happened that we can then unpack to see how you see it as a gift. Like, what leads it? What about whatever happened led you to now say it was a gift?
So I think on the one hand, it was so challenging. With the cafe itself, I mean, maybe one of the gifts was a little bit more due diligence before you get involved in a business. But there were some, like we couldn't, because it was in a heritage building, we couldn't make any improvements. We couldn't improve our service. But even there, those gifts become quite special, because I actually read up on heritage and began to learn more about being in Cape Town and understanding like our sense of place, which is wonderful. There were gifts in terms of, because of the crowdfunding, there were 35 people who'd kind of put in to try and make it happen, and seeing how they kept up. They didn't mind if I failed, but what two did. So, for example, one of our investors knew someone who was very high up in retail, and asked this gentleman to come chat to me. And to this day, he was like, my mantra when I walk around these places, fix it so it stays fixed. And to this day, that little sentence is really, really useful, And so it's a tiny gift. It's a little jewel, but
Yes.
that's in my head forever. And what also really happened was it taught me I really love people and built relationships. There's still people that I'm in contact from that time. And I think it really showed me like the pitch up in the morning every day and do the same thing every day is not where I'm strong. But like relying on people in that interaction with people, it made my day every day. And I was like, okay, this is really something. And maybe it sounds suited, but I am like, I'm very proudly an introvert. I love kind of being on my own or having my own time. So to have that as like, no, this is something really that does kind of drive you forward was quite a growth kind of thing. And I do. So it's at that my personal email, I kept that email address. And I'll always keep it as my personal email address because it reminds me, I'm stronger than I realized I could be. Because as much as I'm not there for every day, I did it, and I did pitch up for 18 months. And during that time as well, gave me a real sense of confidence because it was the first time that cafe ever ran in the black. It had been running at a loss, and I had a feeling like I think I can make changes here that would be the difference. And I do always have that. It just wasn't being completely honest, it wasn't enough to live on or stuff to live on, but it just squeaked into the black, and I was so proud of that. In terms of yes, and I think sometimes now even I'm like, just remember those things you see, act on them, and they do make a difference. So that, and then probably the last one is knowing when to quit, because I had a lot of pride. There were a lot of people watching me who initially were like, we don't think this is going to work. And to actually take that step inside yourself and go, you know what, I've done my best, and no, it's not going to work. You need to walk away now. And it's very hard at the time. And then 3 or 4 months later, you're like, what was I thinking? Of course, I should have walked away. This is perfect. But at the time, it's very difficult. I actually read on something on Facebook. It was like, wait, when do you know if you're being resilient or if you're being stubborn? And it's a really hard question when you're running a business. Like, do you just need to push through, or do you need to go, this needs to end?
So what's your answer to that question? How do you know when it's you're being just stubborn or push, or you actually, need to quit, or you need to push?
Yeah. Two things. The one is just common sense, like look at the numbers and go, are there ways of increasing that little bit of return that isn't going to kind of kill everyone around you with the hard work? So that's one. But the second was very much, it's your inner voice. I feel like my inner voice always tells me. And yeah, I think in fact, funnily enough, if I share a story, when you invited me to do the podcast. So now here I am as Thunder Fund, and it's very new. So maybe talk about that. So I'm not, I'm literally entering this role now.
Yes.
And we had that lovely chat the one evening, and you sent me the invitation to the podcast. And literally we have, within the next 2 days, I needed to make a call on whether we shut down Thunder Fund or keep it going. And even in a boardroom, we're sitting going, there's so many opportunities, but there's that gap. There's always that gap with businesses, that cash flow gap compared to where you're going to be. So looking at gap and going, do we have the resources to ride it or not? And the conversation was very much like, no, we don't. To kind of end this with integrity, we need to pause now. And there was this voice, I could literally like feel it where it was in my body going, yeah, no, this is not true. This is not a true conversation. And just a name popped into my head. And the next day I reached out, made a phone call, and we're still in negotiation, so it's not, but it looks like we've got really amazing investors in the company, that we've got the cash flow. So there is, when do you know? That was me. I was like looking at the numbers, being really simple, sensible, and there was just that itch almost like, no, this is amazing, and there is a way. So yeah, inner voice, I think, is kind of quite important. And
and I think it takes a lot of courage to listen to that inner voice, especially if you're in a boardroom with a whole lot of people saying something totally otherwise.
Different.
Yeah,
it does. But I have found literally in the last year, I'm relying on it. So like, watch the space. I'll let you know later if it works. But the thing of having a very clear question and going to sleep on it, and when you wake up, you actually have the answer. And I like when I took the gap, and I studied circular economy. We've got a great sunbeam happening.
Yes.
Because circular economy for me is a framework of how business can work on environmental initiatives. So that's why I found it really exciting. And it's like, as a framework, it's kind of every business's waste is another business's product. So hence the circle. And I was looking at how literally I wanted to get into it, and I was looking, how can I be useful in this arena? And I literally did that. I was like, I'm go to sleep. I need, a couple of nights in a row. When I wake up, I'm going to have the answer. And literally for 3 days in a row, I woke up and it was like, you need to focus on crowdfunding. You need to focus on crowdfunding. And it was such a strange thing, because it literally wasn't what I was thinking. Crowdfunding was that thing I do for fun. And what is so interesting is when we did, suddenly these amazing clients kind of literally came in through referrals. And now, like you said, looking back, it feels like there's been this very clear pathway to where I'm asked to be with Thunder Fund over the past 2 years. But so that inner voice, I think, has really been going, this, yeah, you need to do this in this way. So, yeah.
So what else have you learned then from failure that maybe informs now how you take risks and make decisions?
Yeah. Two, I think my personality loves to think things through and really get all the evidence and then make a decision. And I think that can sometimes be a real barricade, or things then don't happen quite fast enough. So with some failures, like there have been actually crowdfunding campaigns haven't worked because I didn't move fast enough. So that's quite an important lesson. And I don't know if you know the Hippocrates, the 4 personalities: choleric, sanguine, melancholic, and phlegmatic. So there's a lot of people who do red, yellow, green, blue is like the way it's. I'm very much a green, which is phlegmatic, and they're very calm and easygoing. And your traditional leader is very choleric and red, and they're like, just go, and they ride over things and they can do it. And I do kind of go, okay, so my natural is, let's just get all the information, we'll make a decision. I'm like, okay, today I think I just need to pretend to be a red. Just pretend you've got the information and go. So that's actually quite a joy, is that you do start stretching yourself and going, like, how else do I need to be to help my business succeed? So it's
So it's interesting. A lot of from our discussion, for me, what I'm hearing is there's a lot of personal awareness that has come from these gifts, from this journey, and hence informs how so your strengths and weaknesses, and so you found strategies to counter the weaknesses and to work to the strengths.
It is a real gift. I think that's back to inner voice as well, as sometimes I think everyone gets this where you're like that's not true, that's not right. And that's that little signal to yourself to like, okay, cool. Where what am I hearing that maybe I can change or be different? I mean, and it happens, I think, externally as well as internally. So, in a board, like your example, the board meeting, and someone will be making those decisions, and you'll be like, no, that's actually, for me, this is incorrect or not true. And then being able to listen to that and move on it often leads to real gems.
Yes. If we talk a bit about like your organizational culture, because I know you worked a lot with teams, and you've been in a team and you've led a team, you've led businesses. How can we encourage like some innovation but still get the work done and help people make mistakes so that they can learn, but manage that, those taking on risks and still keep the company safe? It's a fine line, but just love your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it is. And actually, since I feel like I'm at the beginning of the Fund to Fund journey, I'm like, I will have more information as we go forward as well. But I have been privileged to be on some amazing teams and worked with teams. So I do hope to take some of it forward. And I think the one thing I've always said is that always try to believe is that no one comes to work and wants to do a bad job. So if any culture that has worked really well, we've always had that sense of everyone's here to do a good job. So how do we enable it? Definitely when I was in the more corporate, I was really fortunate because it's IT. Everyone's kind of gone through work experience and they're all at a stage where they're there because they want to be there. And the challenges are big and it's scary. Like I've literally had a phone call where we think we've had 50 million rows of medical data hacked. I mean, you can imagine what that phone call wasn't. It was fine. Everything was good. Security was good. But just, so the challenges can be really big. Around a culture, I think there's some really very practical things. Just a weekly staff meeting. And like BackaBuddy, I don't know if I'm giving away trade secrets, but I think it's absolutely amazing, is they have a weekly gathering where someone presents on something they love, on their hobby. So it's not about, hey guys, this is our KPIs and indicators and this is what we need to do. It's literally getting to know each other. And we live in this world of hybrid or online working, and not like some of my team now in Kenya, some in Joburg, so coming together is not that possible. So focusing on how you see people as more than just their role, I think is going to be really, really important. And then what has always helped me is having quite clear goals and targets. So, because I've always, and that's why I say I was very fortunate in the corporate, as there was a lot of trust for me. So we had, and I'll give an example, we had a massive, massive potential client. And we were this tiny, enthusiastic, excited kind of IT company at the right place at the right time. It was that whole when digital transformation was becoming a buzzword, and it's what we'd been doing and didn't realize it for 5 years. So suddenly, right place, right time. And just being given the trust, because there was no way we knew what the right steps were to bring on this client. But just to go meet people and see it. And again, I think that inner voice. So what I did as an employee to help keep that trust was just to keep feeding back and saying why. So I would have this gut about, I want to speak to that person. And this is why. So I would keep communicating, I think was there. And then what I hope to be able to emulate is that trust of, okay, cool. I've got your back. If this doesn't go right, I've got your back. And so through those, when I did, because we did actually finally make that big deal with this client. And I think the key was listening very carefully to pain points. And often this is one thing I've discovered, is that it's very seldom, you write the big deal and we can sort all your issues. And it's often just this tiny little thing where you save someone some time and you just listen. And that was the thing that changed. It wasn't being perfect on all the scorecards. So to answer your question, because I'm remembering kind of from the employee side, is to keep open the communication, and also the mistakes, I guess, almost that they always do lead to something a bit more profound. So just having trust that happens. I mean, I have these awful memories of, I have once wiped a client's entire database by accident. And I remember phoning our CEO and going, I've just wiped our client's database, and they pulled in the developers. And I always hope to emulate that. When I get that phone call, someone going, I've really messed up, of going, not a problem. What happened? What do you need? So I think that's what I will try forward. It's just the calmness of, whatever it is today, time keeps moving. We'll keep going forward. Don't worry.
Yeah.
And then what did happen with the client is they actually trusted us more, because the worst had happened and we managed to kind of work through it. So I think, to answer your question about mistakes, is just to believe that even those moments when your heart sinks to your toes, there is a pathway through it, and this too shall pass. And if we just keep doing what you do best, we'll be okay. And I think that's actually, so getting to know people and reminding yourself to trust them. I think that's kind of going to be how I try to build culture, because it's how I've benefited from some really great culture.
Yeah. Some lovely points there. Just looking, I know you said earlier about there's a lot of companies where the initial kickoff is really hard for businesses to do. And it is so true. So maybe just, there's two aspects to this part, but just starting off with, just from your experience and your knowledge of helping so many people crowdfund their ideas and get it going, what is what is the climate of startup businesses in South Africa? Are there any specific issues that we seem to face? What's it like right now in terms of someone who wants to start a business in our country?
So I think it's strange, actually, because it isn't easy. I think South Africa, more than many places, has a lot more paperwork and kind of bureaucracy that's not necessarily very easy to understand initially. So there's that challenge, and I do know that sort of different organizations are looking at that and how to help entrepreneurs. It may not always be like that, which is brilliant. On the other hand, I think we very lucky. There's a lot of space for innovation. There's a lot of space for people to try new things. And I also, generalizing, but I think South Africans are quite entrepreneurial. So they're quite open to new businesses, and they quite good at thinking of different ways around issues. And I did live in England for a while, and I noticed that was almost many of the businesses that get open are the same businesses that were there before, because of the structures. There's a lot of freedom here to think and try something new. So that's a massive advantage, I think. Startup funding is really, really tough. If I had my way in a fairy wand, I would almost go everyone just have a bit of bucks to go create something that's going to fail. Like, just go do that because you learn so much. So I think that's where I do love crowdfunding. It's access to finance, but it's not easy. It really isn't easy to successfully crowdfund. It's a lot of work, a lot of interactions, and but what it does do is it starts building a community around your idea. So, like I said it earlier, and I will always believe it. There's so much more to crowdfunding than the funds you eventually raise that actually can help a business. So yeah, I wish we could almost have, when you turn 18, here's your startup fund, and go create something amazing, because nothing's wasted along the way, but we don't expect you necessarily to succeed the first time around. But that fund isn't there, so I work in crowdfunding.
Yeah. So then I wanted to talk then about the resource of crowdfunding and Thunderfund specifically. But to ask you this question, because I'm asking a few people, what comes to mind for you when someone says, I can't start a business because I don't have the funds?
No one does. Let's try anyway. It's not a very helpful answer, I'm sure. But so I think where I would actually say, look at crowdfunding, look at Thunderfund or that type. It's rewards based. So when you fund, you put up rewards or incentives for people to back you. So you're not asking for donations. It's an exchange and a thank you. And where that can be incredibly useful for someone who's thinking about starting a business and they're not sure, is you don't have to go start the business, and maybe start it as a project. So, for example, you've got the beautiful furniture in the background. So if I may, I'll use that as an example. Is first put up, say, guys, what's your first need? Do you need a workshop or a retail space like this, a pop-up? That would actually be amazing. Like, I'm going to try this out. I'm going to do a pop-up exhibition or store, and I need this amount of money to make it happen. But rather than asking for donations, you can buy my products, maybe at a discount, or maybe because they're very unique, and I'll only ever make one of these because it's for you. And you set up a campaign around rewards based. And then what that does is kind of start saying your intention, and amazing things happen when you start saying, I'm going to do this. It also lets you test, like, do people want to own your stuff? Sometimes they don't, quite often they do, but it gives you a test. And the challenge, you don't have to have made it yet, because that's crowdfunding is like, hi, I'm going towards this idea. So you can test, and you'll find some products work better than others. Cool. So if you want to start, and then you do get that experience of trying to sell. And then if you do raise the money to do the pop-up exhibition, then you've got to deliver on the product. So you also get really practical experience on what delivery costs and how long it does take to make. And if you do it right, and this is, to be honest, somewhere where I've had to learn it over a few campaigns, is you will keep in contact with everyone who supported you ongoing. And that way you build a relationship and a client base. And then I really believe if you go through all of that, that inner voice will tell you, yes, you can. And you've also got some history. So if you do then want to go to a bank and ask for a loan, or an investor, or, or just even you internally yourself going, is it worth the risk? You've got a history of, I did this, So yeah, give yourself a try through crowdfunding for your business would be kind of the idea. And I'm going because I'm not sure whether I should mention our match funding.
Yeah, so mention now about tell us a bit more about Thunder Fund and what's available for people who want to get going with their business ideas.
So yes, and we do hope to do more of these because it's incredible. But at the moment, so in 2024, Standard Bank are offering a match funding opportunity to qualifying businesses. So it is a business that either currently has a Standard Bank business banking account or a business that's looking to open a business banking account, and then focusing really about supporting youth businesses or women-owned businesses, or township rural, businesses that aren't in the traditional kind of urban spaces. And if a company runs a successful crowdfunding campaign, if you raise between 3,000 and 50,000 Rand, Standard Bank will match it. So you will raise 50,000, you'll go home with 100,000 for qualifying businesses. I need to say that because it's the banking world.
Yes.
And it's an absolutely amazing offer. And it's literally, it's from the CSI department. It's just to help businesses in this economy. I think it's the future of South Africa is if this kind of the smaller businesses are able to take off. So it's an amazing opportunity, and we'll definitely be looking for similar and other partners who offer things similar to entrepreneurs.
So definitely, if you have a business idea, or if you're just starting out, you could use Thunder Fund as the platform to help you crowdfund, to test your idea, develop that community, sell, all of that you said that comes with crowdfunding, and have whatever you raise matched, so doubled. Yeah. Your efforts will actually be rewarded and doubled if you meet the requirements.
It does feel very rewarding because I've helped some businesses through this. For the first 5,000 euros, when you speak to probably the first 5 or 10 people, it is quite hard to get that going. I mean, we all have cold calling kind of jitters, or
yes,
it's quite a challenge to ask, but you need to if you're going to have a business, and sell and find what other people are going to be interested in your product. It's always a challenge, but it's incredibly rewarding with the match funding. Is you get there and you just got past that first 3,000 or 5,000, and then you're like, oh, that's 10,000 now. And I've seen it each time, and then suddenly this momentum kind of builds, and you can raise way more than the 100,000, if you've got a good idea and want to keep it pushing.
Yeah. So how can people find out more, Erica, and get a hold of you?
Oh, so for the match funding specifically, if you go to Thunder, spelled wrong, so THUNDA.fund, and then /opportunity, so Thunder Fund Opportunity, and that has all the information about the Standard Bank matching offer. But literally come to the website thunderfund.africa and see some of the campaigns that are up there. And you're very welcome. There's support@thunderfund.com or Erica@thunderfund.com. You're very welcome to email any of us, and we will point you in the right direction and say welcome.
Super. Cool. Is there anything else that I haven't asked that you wanted to share in terms of our mindset around dealing with failure and entrepreneurship, startups, funding?
I think only one thing is popping up, which is a little off topic and funny.
Yes.
Is around female entrepreneurs, because you may have gathered I read and get advice from everyone. One of the things that does come up for women in business, they say don't feed people because it's the nurturing. What's popped into my head there is I have had so much success when I feed people. So and I think that's so. I think my point is if you've got something, use it. So often I'll do, and if I may share a story,
yes.
Often what I love to do is always take something healthy like fruit and chocolate. And it was at that massive retail client. We suddenly got told one day we were going to meet like the big boss, and he's in the press, and there's it's sudden big chance meeting. And in that meeting, we went in with the team, with like my colleagues from that client, to present. And there were two things that I'm so proud of from the meeting, and I think are really important, like have helped me going forward. The one is I took nut cheese and jelly tots. And part of why I like that, I'm giving away my secrets now, is because it's colorful. Just, and it just calms everything down, I think, if you've just got these things, and they're easy. And the gentleman came in, and he was really hammering the team and really hardcore. But he was kind of eating the jelly tots, and then you could see him visibly relax. And then he peeled nachi, and then he was chatting. And at the end of the meeting, he was like, "Oh, thank you. I haven't actually eaten since last night." So he literally had this schedule of like, got to put 6 and and he came in, and we all have that, I think, when you're sort of starving. He's like, "Why am I listening to you? What's going on?" And literally, as sugar hit his system, could just relax and join us in the room. And I was like, I'm really glad. Like that's, I love to make people feel comfortable. So if, are you thirsty? Are you hungry? They said they're basics. And that actually came from the cafe. Our service was slow because our kitchen was tiny. So what we started doing was, as people arrived, we'd give them a tiny little bucket of soup in winter, or spring water in summer, with mint and lemon. And literally, if they come to you for lunch, they're probably tired and dehydrated and starving. So that little bit relaxed everyone, so that we could serve them at our slow pace with our tiny kitchen. And I think I've taken that away, and I'd love to do that.
Yeah.
Very completely off topic, but very useful.
No, but a very, I think it is important that we remember, if we are not looking after our biological needs, literally our food and sleep and our warmth and our comfort, it's very hard to do the hard level thinking and to build the relationships, which builds the trust, which leads you to deal with the challenges of being an entrepreneur. But you also you said you read a lot on that, but and as a female entrepreneur, are there any other challenges that you think, because it's quite interesting, in your Thunder Fund campaign related to that offer with Standard Bank, there's a specific category for female run entrepreneurs. So I know we make a lot about that, like how come, why do we need to single out females and give them extra support?
Sorry, I have so much to say about this. It's weird. I think, no, like it is amazing to start. I think kind of culturally, and it's definitely changing, but you need to give yourself permission to succeed. You need to believe in yourself and go, oh, I can do that. And I do think there's been almost a disconnect where boys are given that permission, and they almost have that permission thrust upon them. You're going to go, you're going to do this. And I think traditionally women almost have to fall over that permission by themselves, and like, oh, actually I was right there, or I had that instinct and I wish I'd acted on it. We almost need to discover it. So it is amazing when there are initiatives that maybe say to a woman, like, oh, actually, if I own this business, we qualify for that. That's pretty amazing. But I also think with women entrepreneurs, we're very lucky, I think, with the online world and remote is changing. But like having, because I read a lot. I love the self-help, and quite often they'll give you a structure for your day, and nothing in that includes feeding your child breakfast, taking it to school, and what happens when they're sick and you're taking them to hospital.
Yes.
And so and I remember my mom back then was she started importing these pepper pots, and she took it to a restaurant, and this gentleman said to her, "Oh, you women and your little side businesses," and he was so derogatory. And I remember that my mother for me was amazing, because she just kept going. In fact, she ultimately became a jeweler, so this was made by her.
Okay.
Because there weren't enough funds. So what do you do? And it wasn't terribly hard or anything, but they just weren't. And she just kept trying to find these little businesses. And quite often the feedback she got back was, you little woman. So it's quite, and then she became an incredibly successful businesswoman. I'm so proud of that journey. But yeah, certainly from like looking at, there's a lot of assumption that you must do business in a certain way. And, entrepreneurship is going to be painful. You're going to work 18-hour days. And quite often women look at that and go, well, I'd love to work 18-hour days. I love my business, but I've got these kids and this responsibility, and I need to do that. So like maybe one day, I don't have the answers in any way, but I'd love to write a book, because it's not out there that I've read, of how you do that entrepreneurship journey in between, like what you'll give as your priority, because keeping this little person alive and happy sort of becomes your priority. It has to.
Yes.
So it's really, and yet you can do so much. You become incredibly powerful. You're very good at prioritizing.
Yes.
Yet very good at building relationships in a community. And I think those two are powerful for any business, prioritizing relationships. So, yeah.
Oh.
But real.
Thanks, Erica.
I'm like, I know my head's gone. When he's 18, I'll tell you how to do it, because I'm just discovering now.
I think we're going to have to do a follow-up chat in a couple of years. Cool. I've got some rapid-fire questions just as we wrap up. Just some quick questions to ask you. The first thing that comes to mind, just for some fun. So what comes to mind? Yeah.
I'll switch on my red so I don't think about it too much.
It's okay if you think, but yeah. What comes to mind when I say risk?
That. Did you see me breathe in? It's spice of life.
What is your secret weapon for bouncing back from a setback?
Breathing. Just that box breathing, learned in theatre. Breathe in 2, 3, 4, hold 2, 3, 4, out 2, 3, 4, hold 2, 3, 4. You breathe out because it takes you away from your emotion, and then you go, time moves on. Literally, so it's a little routine, and then you can engage with whatever happens. Oh.
What's the most important lesson you've learned as an entrepreneur?
People. I think people are amazing. They will always try to help you, and even if someone's shouting at you, they're actually helping you, because you're showing you what you need to do. So.
Oh, that's interesting. What is the best advice you've ever received as an entrepreneur?
Can I do two? They're both from Alon and Race Corp. The one is, it's always painful, no matter what. Like, doing nothing is painful, doing something is painful, growing and scaling is painful. So just enjoy the pain. I think that's probably, or actually don't view it as pain, and then, it's just life.
It just is.
And the second was a really practical, the thing where never underestimate your resources. So if you're stuck, write down everything you have available to you in terms of, and it can be anything, great attitude, sunny day, And often an answer will come out of that. So just write down everything you think you've got available, and often answers come out from doing that list.
Oh, that's so
thank you, Ellen.
useful.
Yeah.
And last one, what inspires you to get out of bed in the morning?
The cheesy to say life.
No, it can be true. It is.
But probably my family, but also when you're out there, you do have adventures. So yeah, life.
Yeah, life. And really, we are so lucky to be alive and to have all these opportunities around us if we just look for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what would be your last parting thought or tip to anyone out there that's listening who has this urge to start something but is just riddled with the fear of failure, with this being so scared to take the first step? What would be your last parting thought?
Probably try it, because your inner voice is not going to let you go until you do. So, and yes, actually you will fail. Amazing. You don't know where that's going to lead. So just listen to your inner voice and go for it.
Thank you, Erica.
And maybe crowdfund to try to do it.
Don't forget to crowdfund.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks. I'm Talana Simpson, and this has been Risk and Rise. To learn more about the topics of risk fitness and rising up, and to find a list of growing resources for startups and for entrepreneurs, please go to riskandrise.co.za. I'd also love to hear from you about your experiences with crowdfunding, how you could possibly use crowdfunding to get your idea tested and out there and growing community, and get the funding you need to get going. So do get in touch at hello@riskandrise.co.za. I'd love to hear from you. And give us a like and share the podcast with your fellow entrepreneurs so that we can all go and risk and rise together.
Thank you for joining me on Risk and Rise, where we face fears, conquer challenges, and rise above adversity to achieve our dreams. Find out more at riskandrise.co.za.